Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. So I understand this is the last session before lunch. So that's the good news. The bad news is that you're stuck with us for the next 30 minutes. But anyone can leave at any point, by the way. So guys, I'm George. Today we're going to talk to you about why AI isn't the advantage execution is. What I wanted to start off with is that everyone in this room has access to the same AI models. So essentially, you're all buying the same type of intelligence. Your competitor across the room has the exact same AI model that you do. So if you all share the same type of models and the same intelligence, where does the advantage actually come from? And that's the question that we're going to try and answer over the next 25 minutes. And it's a story of two halves. It's made up of intelligence and trust. I'm going to cover the intelligence part, and my colleague Valentinos will cover the trust. But effectively, we need to break it down into these two aspects. And the answer, by the way, to the question is very simple. It's actually up on the slide here. It's not the advantage. Having AI is not the advantage. It's how you execute with it. So let us walk you through what we mean by that. But before we dive into the intelligence part, let's go back to where it all started. So wave one of AI, basically, it enabled us to become faster. So it helped us, write emails, summarize the meeting notes, even helped us write a bit of code. Useful, right? That was cool. But now what's happening is that with the second wave of AI, which is what we call frontier transformation, we're not just making the same type of work faster, but we're actually redesigning the way that we do work. And if we look at, how the top frontier firms, based on the IDC and Deloitte research, have gained from this frontier transformation that they embarked on, you'll see that almost 9 out of 10 frontier firms, they report strength in their top line growth. And if we compare that to the growth that the laggards are having, it's just 23%. And here's the uncomfortable fact. 84% of firms, they still haven't touched a single work item within their organization when we talk about AI. So if we talk about execution, we need to understand that the unit of AI is shifting from the prompt to the agent. So a prompt basically answers a question that you put in front of it. The agent is what actually gets the work done. So think of how you engage a client, how you onboard a client, how you advise your client. It helps you. It doesn't just help you understand that a trade is broken. It helps you reconcile the whole trade. So the whole idea behind this is that when you buy the model, that model knows nothing about your organization because it wasn't grounded in your data, right? It has to be grounded on the exact role of your organization. We break that down into the three boxes that you see at the bottom. So for the intelligence aspect to come into the picture, basically the AI model has to understand, how your teams are structured. What are the different roles within those teams? What are the different workflows? How your teams interact within your organization? They have to also understand, the life state of your business, which is constantly changing, right? Based on market conditions, based on external factors, and it has to be able to adapt in real time on your life state of your business. And the last part, which is the most important part, is it has to understand the knowledge that every single one of you carries in the organization, because that's where the real intelligence comes from at the end of the day. So at Microsoft, we've given that grounding that has to take place a name. We call it the Microsoft IQ. But in fact, I think that's the wrong branding. It should be called something else. So if I pick on you as an example, what's the name of your company? I'm sorry? BitPrime. So it should be called, in your case, it should be called the BitPrime IQ, because it's tailored to your organization specifically. So think of that as the intelligence layer that every single agent that you build within your organization can inherit from and gain the intelligence of your organization and include it in every single agent that you build in your organization. And that's broken down into the 4 connected sources of enterprise intelligence that you see on the slide. So the first one is work IQ. And this is where actually the work gets done, how you collaborate within your organization. If you have Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Copilot, this is how you guys communicate internally within your organization. So that's the first pack. That's the life semantic view of your organization. The second one is Fabric IQ. And that's essentially how your business operates. And what we mean by that is Fabric is a SaaS offering that we have, a data platform that we have as Microsoft. And in there, you can basically bring in all of your data into one single view that we call one lake. And it doesn't matter where that data is stored. It can be stored on AWS, it can be stored on premise, it can be stored on Azure. Anywhere that is stored, you can bring that in, and basically that creates that semantic layer on how your business operates. Third one is the Foundry IQ. This is where you build your agents. And basically, that's what turns all that scattered data and knowledge that you have in your organization into something that you can scale, and you can build agents based on the grounding of that data. And the fourth one that we recently announced at Build a couple of weeks ago, we call it WebIQ. And effectively, what WebIQ does is it brings data from the external environment, not within the environment of your organization, but what's happening in the real world. For example, there may be something that affects your pricing. So it's important to gain that insight, that knowledge from WebIQ, to be able to have your agents gather that knowledge and adapt according to the external factors within and outside of your organization. So ultimately, it's not about the intelligence that the AI model brings, it's about the intelligence that you gain through these four connected resources, which is tailored exactly to your organization. But if we're honest here, it's what separates a live demo that you build for your customers, that we're all guilty of delivering, versus something that actually works in production. And to be able to take it into production, the most important ingredient for that is trust. And this is where my colleague Valentinos comes in.
Thank you, George. Can you guys hear me without the mic, or do you prefer the mic? Mic? Okay, perfect. So, thanks, George. Hi from my side as well. My name is Valentinos. Thanks for joining us for today's session. So, George explained to us why intelligence, why data matters, why there is a lot of value in your company's IQ, right? So, I'm going to shift gears a bit and switch a bit the narrative and try to, in the next few slides, give you some food for thought and hopefully provoke some ideation from your side. So I believe we all agree that when it comes to the latest AI models and the developments in the AI area, the development is on a tangent, right? So AI models are continuously growing, new capabilities, things that we can do today we couldn't do 3-4 months ago. But at the same time, what we like to call trust, in other words, the ability for governing, having observation for those models, being able to have visibility of what those models are doing, unfortunately, is not growing at the same pace. So we're not as confident that we can release those models out in the wild, let's say. So as a result, a lot of development, a lot of POCs, a lot of MVPs that we do internally end up just staying on the shelf, right? They never see the light of production. So this gap between trust and the capabilities of AI is what is causing us that risk of execution, that gap in terms of leveraging and seeing the value from the technology that we have today. And if I were to ask, what's the one thing stopping you from putting an agent into production today? I'm sure that, actually let me rephrase that question. How many of you believe that we don't have the right technology today to create the agents that we need to see value out of our data? Anybody? Do you believe we have the right technology to create the agents to enable our business? Depending on your capabilities. So it's a matter of knowledge, in other words, skills and expertise.
Yeah, exactly the same. It depends on your skills.
Exactly. So from that perspective, technology is there, skills, if you don't have them in-house, you can outsource things. So it's not a matter of technology or skilling. It's a matter of being able to release those capabilities in a compliant and secure way. And this is where a lot of times in the financial industry, but also in other industries as well, but more importantly in the FSI industry, security and compliance sometimes has a bad branding, if we were to say. What do I mean by that? A lot of times it's considered like the blocker. It's considered that it's coming and it's the brake to the innovation, right? We're trying to accelerate. We want to push new technologies in the market. We want to leverage the data we have to provide some new service to our customers or even internally. But then compliance comes in, security and comes and puts a halt or slows down that process, right? So it's important for us to understand, though, that security shouldn't be a blocker. It's an accelerator. What do I mean by that? It depends on how we leverage and how structured we are. If we're talking about a bolt-on approach, and what do I mean by bolt-on approach? If we're developing a new idea that we have and we're starting leveraging the latest model, we develop an agent, great. We show it internally, we have an MVP, everybody's excited, business is excited, and we're ready to move it to production. It needs to go through an audit, right? It needs to go through a process of approval from security, from compliance, and that's when we open the Pandora box of, can we do this? Can we do that? Are we allowed to? What's going on? And that's where all those questions are putting a delay in our journey to innovation, in our journey of releasing those new functionalities to production. But if we move from a bolt-on to a by design approach, and I will explain a bit more later in the next slide what I mean by that, is that we can set up guardrails, we can set up specific premises that all agents will inherit. So by default, once we set that basis, then we are able to move much faster. And what do I mean, mainly, what do I mean by built-in? So essentially it's three main things, right? We're talking about identity, governance, and observability. So when we're looking at identity, it's important for every agent to have its own identity, to have its own set of credentials, so that we're able to control what the agent has access to and what it can do. So giving them the right access and the right rights to perform the actions that we want them to perform, that the organization wants them to perform. Governance, the ability to have the right policies that, of course, are compliant and auditable by our organization, but allows us to govern what those agents are doing and have control over what they're capable of doing. And last but not least, observability. The ability to, if we were to be asked what happened or why something happened, to have that visibility on the decision-making of the agent. This not only allows us to answer questions in case something, God forbid, goes wrong, but more importantly for us to understand how the agent is thinking, trace the way the decision-making was made in order to improve the execution of those models. And of course, underneath all of this is security. And by security, I mean having a secure base in the organization, having security when it comes to the rights management of what the agents can access, having security in our documents so nothing gets leaked by accident outside of the organization. And even if it does get leaked, it doesn't affect as much because whoever gets it doesn't have access to it. So security is paramount, and this is what we build on top with identity, governance, and observability. So George touched a bit on intelligence. We just commented and discussed a bit on trust and why trust is important. It's important to understand that in this equation, in this agentic world that we're trying to build, it's both of these things are important in building the right recipe. So intelligence and trust. Intelligence, as George says, is important to get the value out of our data. It's important for us to build agents that will provide value to the organization. But at the same time, if we just have intelligence, we're going to be stuck in pilots, and we're never going to reach the production and actually getting the value out of those agents. At the same time, if we only have trust, we don't really see much value because there's no intelligence behind, right? So these two aspects are the recipe that we need. And it's important because, and I would like you to keep this message, your unique intelligence is what powers the agents, right? This is where you get the value from. But trust is what lets you deploy them. So it's important to have both intelligence and trust in place. Now, we discussed a bit on the trust. Let's touch a bit on the how aspect of things. So when it comes to our journey to try to reach the frontier, trying to reach, let's say, leverage the technology that's out there, the innovation that we can build new technologies, we see four main pillars when it comes from Microsoft. So the one is enriching employee experiences. Here, it could be freeing up people from manual labor. This can have to do with, for example, in onboarding, reconciliation, reporting, so manual tasks that we can automate, in other words. Reinventing customer engagement. Here, we're talking about something that's been around for a while, conversational bots, so the ability to give additional functionality and a better customer experience to our customers, while at the same time, obviously, saving our back-end support team a lot of hours of troubleshooting and so on. Reshaping business processes, automating different business processes to be more effective, to be more optimized in our execution. And last but not least, bending the curve to innovation. So leveraging that the technology that's out there today, like George said earlier, everybody has access to the latest models. So having access to the latest model is not something that only one organization has. It's, from my perspective, is nowadays a commodity. Yes, it may be an expensive sport. I believe we all agree on that. But at the end of the day, if I want to leverage the latest Cloud model, I can do that. If I want to leverage the latest OpenAI model, I can do that. So leveraging the latest technology in terms of the AI models, it's in the tips of my fingers. So now it's important for me to understand what scenarios will offer the biggest value to my organization. And from that perspective, it's not a single bullet, it's not a one-size-fits-all, right? So I want to urge you to sit down with your teams, discuss the scenarios that are important to your organization specifically, and prioritize them based on the value that you get out of them. What offers more value to the organization? What's more important for the longer strategy of the organization? And then start building on those scenarios first. Don't try to tackle everything at once. Choose rightly and wisely what makes more sense. And as a next step, it's important to do this in a kind of phased approach. And what do I mean by that? Identify one scenario, identify one agent that you want to build, and make sure that you start building that agent, but with security first at mind. So it's important to have the right basis, to set up the right guardrails for your agents, which will allow you then to accelerate moving forward. So you start with one agent, you move it into production, everything is, obviously you have your different audits and controls, making sure that everything is functioning the way you want. Then next step is you move to a few more agents. Adjust your guardrails, depending on the scenarios, trying to adjust those policies, those security controls that you have in place, which are being inherited from the previous work that you did, right? So improving those up to the point that you reach what we call enterprise autonomy, the ability to deploy multiple agents, the ability to have an agent workforce, which now is fully compliant, fully visible in terms of their operations to you. So this is kind of the path, let's say, to reaching that enterprise autonomy. Don't try to do it all at once or jump at the end. It's important to have the basis built up front. And handing it over to George for...
Thank you, Valentinos. So guys, the key takeaway here, if you're going to take one sentence home with you tonight, let it be this one. You cannot scale intelligence without scaling trust. The winners of the next decade are not the ones that are going to have the same AI models. We touched on it already. The democratization of AI effectively made those models available to everyone. The winners of the next decade, they're the ones that are going to have the execution discipline to be able to build agents with trust, to be able to then scale that across the enterprise safely and securely and in a fast manner, faster than anyone else. So if we're to touch on, what's the immediate next step? Can I get the next slide, please? Thanks. So I've broken it down to three steps. None of them are boil the ocean type of steps. Valentinos touched on the whole story around how to get into the frontier transformation for your organization. But the immediate next step is basically, first one is explore. Find those high-value use cases within the different types of divisions of your company, in the corners of your industry. Then assess them and be realistic about this. Be honest about how ready you are to go and build an agent. And take the steps, the prerequisites are required before you embark on that journey. And once you have that, start building your readiness plan and your roadmap as to how you're going to bring agents into your organization. And then once you've done that, accelerate. But my advice is basically pick one use case within your organization that is proven to have high value, build it, and pick the one that has low risk, build it, and then once you have that trust built in by design, that's when you can scale across the organization and start building more agents for your company.
It's rare that we have a presentation where we don't have a lot of product discussion. We did this on purpose. We discussed this with George. We wanted more to provide some best practices, if you will, some food for thought in terms of how we believe frontier firms should be approaching this agentic world that we are getting into, right? So, nonetheless, though, there is Microsoft is here to support. There is a platform that Microsoft is offering, which comes to help you across the different pillars of this journey. There's a lot of different product names. We have this slide for you. I mean, you will be able to get the slides afterwards. We have this slide as a bit of a mapping, kind of what those services are. We're not gonna, we can sit down for the next 4 hours and deep dive into every one of them, but I think that will be a bit mean. But at the end of the day, again, Microsoft is offering an end-to-end platform with different tools, from building your intelligence, so building your agents, to building the workflows, grounding your data, like George was mentioning at the beginning, being able to leverage the organization data, which is your unique IQ, your unique data that offers value to the organization, governance, and security and observability. So across this whole journey, there's different services, there's different aspects of the Microsoft platform that you can utilize, depending on where you are in the journey and where you want to focus. But we cannot emphasize enough, start secure. So security should be number one in your mind in order to be able to scale fast. So turning intelligence and trust into execution is the advantage. So AI is not the advantage, execution is, like we said. With that, I would like to thank you for joining us today. As we said at the beginning, technology is here today. So it's not a matter of the technology being the blocker. We have the skills, we have the technology, we can execute. The question that we need to ask ourselves is whether our organization is ready to execute.
Just to add to that, yes, I think, guys, the technology is here. Genuinely, it's ready. We use it every day. Like, we build agents every day at Microsoft. I've built agents for my own personal productivity. In fact, this whole presentation today was built using a product called Microsoft Copilot Cowork, which, by the way, went GA 2 days ago, I think, on the 16th. So it's proven. We use it. We love it. So, guys, as Valentinos mentioned, it's up to you to answer the question: is your organization now ready to execute? Nicolas, please.
Here. I really agree that, and I look after security at Microsoft, so I really agree that security is super important. But maybe just to put you guys a bit on the spot, I also love our tools. And I think I'm one of the people that is token maxing, because I use Cloud Opus for everything, right? And I don't really think about the cost, even though now I'm starting to think a bit about the cost, not only about the cost, about my impact in the world by token maxing and just using Cloud Opus for everything. So the question about execution is that if I was in the shoes of people that want to leverage AI, I want to leverage AI, of course, in a secure way, but also in an efficient way, right? And I don't want to be token maxing. I don't want to be using, okay, we have access to all these amazing models, but I don't want to be using the wrong model for the wrong use case. So my question is, how can someone like Microsoft or a Microsoft partner help me with that? Because, okay, models will be there will be new models all the time, very advanced models, but the question is, I think people are overwhelmed by the choice, by what to use for which use case, and how to be efficient, because it's also about efficiency. And I think many people are not being efficient now with models. They're just spending money without being efficient, without questioning, do I really need to spend all this money now for this model and for these tokens? So my question to you guys is, what do we do about this and about being efficient in our execution with AI?
For full transparency,
It's not staged.
we had no idea about this question. So thanks for putting us on the spot. Very good point, right? So I think it's the paradigm that we see a lot of times in technology, that we want to use the best, that we want to leverage the most computational powerful machines just because we can, but do we really need to? Trust me, I've seen many customers having a less than 10% utilization of their infrastructure, and paying for it without even really needing to. So for me, it's an equivalent scenario. To the question though, it's not an easy solution in the sense that, this model fits that scenario. It's a matter of understanding that's where the journey comes into play, right? So it's a matter of understanding what scenario you're trying to tackle. Obviously, each model has its own persona, let's say, so what problems you can solve, what they're best for. So there's no point of using a deep thinking model just to do chat or just to summarize things, right? So it's important to have that understanding when you're building those agents or when you're building those solutions. But to what we discussed today, those are things that will surface when you have the observability, when you have the right monitoring, when you have the right tools to understand what is this agent doing and why is it consuming so much of is it really needed just to summarize some documents? Why am I using Claude, the latest Claude or the latest ChatGPT just to summarize some documents which I can do with even ChatGPT 4, for example, or 4.1, which is 1/3, 1/5 of the price, whatever it is nowadays. So from that perspective, it's not a silver bullet. Again, it's not something that I can give you an answer, use this or use that. It's a continuous journey, and you need to have full visibility, full monitoring in order to be able to adjust and start using the right models. But I fully agree, and a lot of companies, I'm sure you guys are reading it, some companies are putting quotas on their employees, different methods that you can enforce that. But for me, the right way is to, besides enforcing those quotas just for not going bankrupt, obviously, besides that, it's important to understand which model is good for the job, because there's no point of going to the kiosk, which is across the street with a Ferrari, if I can just walk, right? So it's a journey.
If I can add to that, I think there's two aspects to your question, Nick. One is the cost, and the other one is, which tool do I use for which use case? And I think we as a company are guilty of creating that confusion many times, not just now, but in the past as well. So we're also learning based on feedback from customers as to, what can we simplify to make your work better? And one example is with Copilot. At the beginning, you had to choose the model. Well, actually, you didn't even have a choice. You used OpenAI models. Then we brought in Claude, and we gave you the option to choose the model that you wanted to use to get the response to your prompt. Now you don't even have to choose. Copilot chooses the model based on the question, so it optimizes basically the answer that you're going to get based on the context of what you're trying to achieve. So that's one angle. The second angle in regards to cost. We published yesterday that we managed to train Meta's Llama model in just 7 hours. And this was a breakthrough because using the new chips that we developed in collaboration with NVIDIA GPUs that we have in our data centers, we managed to optimize the way that the server racks interact with each other and they communicate with each other and the GPUs run in the background to be able to train the Llama models. And we brought that down to 7 hours, and I think before it was something like 10x. So the efficiency of hardware will also contribute to bringing down the overall cost. Yes, it's expensive today. It's less expensive than it was a few months ago, a few years ago, a couple of years ago. And it will get cheaper. But we are moving into this token economy that we need to start thinking about, okay, how many tokens do I need to consume? And our customers, including your customers, are not going to talk about, how many seats do I need? They're going to talk about, how many do I need going forward? Any other questions? I think we have 10 more minutes.
Hey, thank you so far. Just a quick question regarding, obviously, AI nowadays is being used by everyone, and it's a smart decision, I guess, to use it. What pieces of advice, I guess, would you say, or would you give to people that still need to, I guess, keep the human element behind things? For example, I'm a salesperson. A lot of people in sales now are using AI-generated emails and so on and so forth. How can we ensure that we're still keeping that human touch to our outreach, for example, or in other use cases?
I think the answer was in the presentation. It's intelligence and trust combined. Because genuinely, when you need to involve a human in the loop, and you need to escalate a decision of an agent to a human to make that call, this is how you built it, by combining these two elements, intelligence and trust. And we see it as well, right? So for example, one of the agents I've built is to automatically approve holidays of the people in my team. Is there a risk in that? Yes, of course there is. And I've instructed it so that if it sees that this person is constantly requesting vacation and they're running out of vacation, then it escalates that decision to me to make the call if it's okay for that person to have their vacation approved. So that's one example of how I'm using it today. I don't know, Valentinos, if you want to add something.
Yeah, and just to also touch the question from a different so one of the things that AI will never be able to replicate unless you're some famous person, it's your personality, right? Your personal touch, your empathy, those things, the way you write, you mentioned about responding to emails and stuff like that as a salesperson. So there's two things that obviously I would suggest based on personal experience that I would go about. So obviously the one touches upon what George said. So by having access to your data, it can learn from the style that you write, the way you respond to emails, so it can sound more like you. So that's the one aspect. And the other one, obviously, which I tend to do, and I'm guilty of it, if you will, or at least I'm not yet there to fully trust AI, is review what AI did. I mean, it's not, I don't have it on autopilot. And that's the name of Copilot, right? It's there to support me. It's a productivity booster for sure. George mentioned we did this presentation with just providing the input in terms of the knowledge. We did this presentation in like 15 minutes. It's a productivity boost. It would have taken me a couple of days to do this presentation otherwise. But I had to sit down and review, go through what it created. So after a couple of hours, we had a version of what we were confident and comfortable to present and believed behind it, right? Just giving you an example. But I would not have asked AI create a presentation and then come here today and pitch whatever was on the slides. We changed a lot of things that AI put on the slides, right? So from that perspective, at least at the moment, I'm treating it as a co-pilot, not autopilot. And maybe in the future, we'll get to an autopilot, but I'm not there yet at a personal level. Nicola.
What's the question? What? You asked the question? Okay. So there was a very nice blog by our CEO, Satya Nadella, on this topic, actually, on Sunday. And he said that it would be good to stop obsessing about, which model is the best, which AI will give me an edge, and think of it in this way. We can think of it as the human capital, which is actually the people that have their own knowledge, their own judgment, their own relationships, people that, they have their own network, especially if you're in sales. This will not change, right? You still need that. And I think this becomes even more valuable. And then you have the token capital. So if you have, you can use AI as a superpower or maybe even as a power to do mundane things for you, things that you would spend time doing on I don't know. I mean, I'm a salesperson as well, right? I hate spending time on admin. And I still spend a lot of time on admin and chasing people to approve things for me. So if I had agents to do that for me, and I can spend more time in front of my customers, which is what I love doing, Why not, right? So I really love this idea of human capital and token capital. And if we have this loop between the two, we can become much better professionals, we can have much more time, and we can provide much better experiences to our customers. And we will not be replaced. I'm sure about that.
I don't know if there's any other questions. We have about 4.5 minutes, or any comments in general, what you guys, anybody wants to share what you guys are doing or where you are in the journey of building agents? Yeah.
So as you all mentioned, that frontier models, they will be constantly changing. It's like back in the internet, it did not matter which provider you used at the time. Let's say now this one is faster, AOL, DSL, whatever, it's the internet. So I think it's exactly the same thing is with the AI. It matters the harnesses that you put around them, the trust, the security, the context, the memory, the approval gates and security grades that you put into it, and then you can just swap the brains, which doesn't matter. If, let's say, a provider lags behind, you just change the brains, put the new horse in a harness, adjust it slightly, and you can go for it. And because you will need to have different things, like, for example, image recognition, one is more smarter on that. Like human conversations, the other one is better at that. Coding and technical tasks, the other one. So that's where you will be constantly swapping that. And there is actually observability adds to it, where you can have like A to B, A to C tests. You can run the same tasks to different models, and then you can see how they perform. There's like grading systems on top of that. So this is a very interesting field, and yeah, definitely everybody should invest time and energy into it.
Thank you, Vadim. Thanks for the comment. Anybody else? If not, thank you guys for
Thank you guys very much.
spending the time with
Thanks.
us. And enjoy the rest of the conference.